Live All Good podcast listeners, what's up? That's right. It is your favorite podcast, Cruzin with the Coaches, a conversation with Julie and Lee. Coming up next, we talk about feelings and emotions and how they're different. You won't want to miss this. Stay tuned. Hey folks, this is Lee Grigsby here, health and life coach and founder of Live All Good Coaching. I'll be on the air with Podcast Business News Network, talking about the various things around health and wellness and mental health. Also talking about how mindset is critical to achieving the goals that you set for yourself. You can reach me at liveallgood44@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, liveallgood.com, and fill out the contact form and reach me there. Once again, that's liveallgood.com. Go to the About section, fill out the contact form, or you can reach me at liveallgood44@gmail.com.
Our priority at Blue Monarch Communications is building your confidence as an effective presenter. Whether you're preparing for a formal presentation, a keynote address, an interview, or presenting an idea or concept to your team or your clients, we are here to ensure that you are poised to effectively communicate your content while engaging and connecting with your audience. Let our team help you shine.
All right, folks, welcome back from that break. It is your latest episode of Cruzin with the Coaches, a conversation with Julie and Lee. I am here with the co-host with the most, Julie Cruz. How are you doing?
Doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. We are nearing the end of March, and so hopefully the weather has been stable for you. I'm glad that there's no more snow, no more below freezing temperatures. Makes me happy. More sunshine. I can deal with that.
Yes.
It's good for the mental health. It's good for okay, I'll just be blunt. It's good for my emotions and feelings.
Just put it out there. Just put it right out there.
Was that too obvious?
That was very obvious. I mean, to me, I don't know about the rest of us, to everyone else, but yeah.
Well, folks, on today's episode, what we want to chat with you about is feelings and emotions, right? Kind of talk about what the difference is between the two of them, and even give some examples of how those can be confused, right?
Right.
So before I jump into, I was reading the article from Psychology Today, and they did a really good job about telling us the difference between the two. But before we get into that, Julie, what are your thoughts about feelings and emotions and the difference between the two?
Well, I mean, I know we were talking about this earlier. So for me, I would have to assume, or as an individual, feelings for me would be the physical things that are actually happening to cause you to, quote unquote, feel the way that you feel. Where the emotions would have to be my interpretation is the energy behind that, like what your mind is saying, how you're feeling, kind of a thing. So like your stomach is turning, but your brain is telling you that you're nervous. So it's just kind of like, okay, so, but then if you really look around the room, you figure out, okay, these are the reasons why I'm feeling this way. And this is why it's coming out this way. So I don't know. It's always been interesting to try to control the interpretations that your body is making that seem so pretty much like involuntary.
I like that. You know what? Let's jump into that first, because I think so many times people think you can control these words are not interchangeable, right? Feelings and emotions. And how many times people tell you, yeah, well, you know what, get control of your emotions, get control of your feelings. Well, with that definition, right? How can you control your feelings?
Right.
Like your body's in control of that. And I love the way you put it, because it's a message, right?
Exactly.
The feeling, it's a physical reaction. Your body is
Correct.
telling you something, right?
Right. I have beads of sweat coming down my forehead. I cannot control that. Are we clear?
Right. I can't make myself not do that.
Exactly.
Now, what you get to control is the emotion, right?
Correct.
You get to control. And again, I love your definition, right? You're in the room, whatever, you're nervous, you're anxious, your stomach is turning, and you're like, man, I feel nervous. What am I going to say? How am I going to act? But you get to control that.
Right.
You get to control that energy, that story that is coming from the message that your stomach is giving you, right?
Yes.
From doing flips.
Yes.
That is I love doing that, or not doing that. I loved how you put that, in that we could talk about the difference right off the bat like that. I think people do try to interchange them and they think that you can control a feeling, right?
Right.
Not so sure, folks. Not so sure.
No.
So now going back to the article from Psychology Today, that's pretty much what you were saying, right? Here in the article, they say your emotions are like the engine of the car, right? And the feelings are the frame. So again, the frame is always going to be there, right? The frame doesn't really change. The engine gets a tune up, or you get a tweak, you get a better engine, right?
Right.
That's what we're talking about when you're trying to decipher your emotions, or again, get control of them, right? Maybe the basic ones we're talking about, anger or sadness, right? Okay, you get to determine how angry you get.
Right.
You get to determine.
You do.
How hot that engine revs up, right?
Yes.
That's a choice that you make.
Correct.
Being angry, that's not something you get to change, right?
Right.
Like if in any given situation, yeah, you maybe had the right to be angry about something. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it becomes a choice, or what the other type of feelings. I think people maybe misunderstand. You ever been in that situation where you meet somebody, right? And not like in a dating situation, but even a group of people, and everybody's introducing, oh yeah, this is so and so, this so and so, and your spider sense goes off, right?
Those hairs in the back of your neck go like, ooh.
Like you just, there's something that you can't put your finger on, right?
Yep.
That's a feeling. Right? And that's why I loved how you put the energy in the feeling, because now how do you interpret that feeling? Like there's something about this person I just got introduced to that I'm not sure about, right?
Okay.
That's also a gut instinct, which is a feeling. Correct. And it's something that you need to trust, right?
Right.
Like and I'm not saying that this person you met is some serial killer. I'm not saying that. but again, it is energy tied to everything. And so this feeling, your body is in tune with this energy that is being put out from this person.
Well, actually, it would be the physical attribute. Your stomach is turning.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
It's in tune. Like your body, your being, your gut is physically in tune with this energy that's coming across,
Correct.
So that's where you get to then determine, okay, what do I do with that information, right?
Correct. So it's the energy that determines what the emotion level that you're going to have to this particular encounter.
Absolutely. Now it goes both ways. I don't want to just say it's negative, right?
Right.
You've been in that situation, I'm sure, because you network and come across a lot of people where you are introduced to somebody and that energy is contagious, right?
Correct.
And
Yes.
you feel that, and maybe you like the feeling you get is, how do you describe it? You get well, I can't even think of a word to say, but you get hyped up, right? Like
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's energized.
Yes,
so it's
energized.
like you feel like the synergy between you and that person, and you're just like, wow, like, and you just want to talk to that person even more and get more ideas from them, because you're just like, oh, we're on the same wavelength again, because the wavelength, you're still determining energy. So it's just kind of like, and so emotionally you've become somewhat combined, and I think that's the part. I don't know, now we're going to get into the science of all of it. Right? But I mean, there's so much to be said about the energy between you and another person. So,
absolutely. And like when you said wavelength, right? I wish we probably should start doing a video podcast, because I would have put a graphic up, like a little sine wave or something.
Right.
When you said it, I visualized that. I literally could visualize like the wavelength, But there is science to that. And just because we don't visually see it, I think that's what confuses people too.
Yeah.
They trust their eyes more than their gut instinct. Their gut instinct is the feeling, but your eyes are going to tell you what you think is how to interpret a feeling, and instead your eyes are going to give you the interpretation for the emotion, you see. Right. But if you're using your vision and your brain to override what your body's telling you, that's where you really get confused, Right. that's where you were like, well, wait a minute. So we can, everybody has been in these where it's a relationship, and like you've seen the even the memes, right? Oh yeah, person A is madly in love with person B, and does everything for person B, and person B pays no attention to person A, right? Person A is using their mind, their brain, to interpret, but incorrectly, what their gut is probably telling them, right? Their gut is probably telling them, okay, well, person B, it didn't. I'm giving
115% and I'm getting 0 back, but that's okay.
Or it'll change.
I love you.
Or it'll change next week. It'll change next month.
Right.
If I do this one thing, then they'll love me, right? All that stuff. That is so crucial, again, in feelings and emotions, right?
Right.
That feeling of this person don't care about me, right?
Right.
That's the real part. Like your body can feel that, but your eyes and your brain are like, but no, that's not real. Oh man, that's it can be a mess. It can be a mess.
It can.
Yeah. I loved what you said about wavelength though. I still like I can visualize that. Maybe I'll have to put a graphic with the post when I
there you go.
Yeah. Or something,
Because it's so true. Because when you're on the same wavelength with somebody, and it's always, I can't even put into words that feeling when you are at a table of, I don't know, 4 or 5 people, and you are saying something, and you could see out of the corner of your eye, someone's eyes just go as big as golf balls because they are totally understanding what you're talking about. And it's just kind of like, you're like, at this point, you're like, okay, the other 3 people can just leave the room because I'm feeling this person right here. Like this is my person right here. Yep. And so I don't know. It's such a great place to be. But again, it's just, especially when it's unexpected, because it's like, it's a complete stranger, and then you're like, you've said one thing and you saw their eyes kind of get bigger, and then you said another thing, they got bigger, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, like this, okay. like this is so cool.
Well, you did put it to words. You said that synergy,
Oh, yep, I did. Yep. You're right. Yeah, it is though. It's such
it's hilarious how that works, and I think people tend to discount their feelings. They want I think they want to use their emotions more instead of counting their feelings.
Yes.
And I think the way to change that is actually, well, this is not quite a teaser, folks, but learning how to be like emotionally intelligent, right?
Correct.
Understanding
That self-awareness.
Understanding how to interpret your emotions and feelings.
And not only that, but also reading the room itself. I mean, I think that's a place that not everybody pays attention to. Like, really is what I'm saying right now important enough for everyone to listen, or am I being zoned out? And it's just kind of like, all right, and then you got that one person who just keeps talking and talking
because they like to hear themselves talk,
right? And you're like, okay.
Or so we've both been in conferences and you've been in leadership positions and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
What you just said, that's the difference between what I think is good leadership or average leadership, right?
Right.
Being able to read the room and not, so I can imagine what, like, if you're leading an organization of thousands of people, right? Even hundreds of people, I think it's probably the same thing. Your intention is typically trying to be the best for that group of people, right?
Correct. Yep.
I would hope it is.
Yes.
If it's not, that's a whole different story.
That's a different kind of leadership.
But if that's the case, if you're not reading the room correctly, like you said, and understanding how to first, what are you feeling from the people you lead, right? Then how are you interpreting their emotions so that you don't misinterpret and use a wrong emotion to lead them?
Correct.
Does that make sense? Because
that does make sense. Yeah.
If
there's also perception too in there, because there are folks who are very direct in what it is that they're trying to say. And there's no it is black and white. There is no gray. And while they may say something and it sounds harsh, taking the time in, again, let's just, put it in that room of 4 or 5 people, and you see a person whose eyes are not getting big, but their eyebrows are going down, looking at you and saying,
like, what the hell are you talking
about? What the hell are you talking about? And so pausing and acknowledging that, so that, and maybe that leader doesn't even have to be you. Maybe that leader is the person beside you who sees what's happening and sees that, okay, you just said that, while I can take what you're saying with a grain of salt, the person across the table is obviously having an issue with it. Let me see if I can't interpret this for you,
exactly.
And kind of, and so trying to help the situation, because the worst thing you can do is to move forward and leave that person in those feelings, in that emotion.
Yes.
So
because
then
that's where the
now you've lost the group.
That's where the miscommunication happens. That's where the misinterpretation happens. And then it becomes, so you're leaving that table. Oh man, that person was a jerk. I can't believe they said that.
Right? Because honestly, if you think about it, everything you said up until that point, that person is not listening any longer. They're done.
Yep.
You lost them. Yep. It's not like when Jerry Maguire here, you had me at hello. It's like, bye-bye. I'm done.
You had me at hello, but you lost me at goodbye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. I'm done. So.
No, that's a great interpretation. Great way to hope. If there's any leaders that are listening to this, pay attention. Definitely. You want to be able to read the room, because you've heard me say on this podcast a couple of times, well, this might be an unpopular opinion, what I'm about to say.
Yep.
And that's my understanding that whatever I'm about to say next, it might be hard to hear, or you might not agree. But why do you disagree? Is it because you're offended and it's something that you do?
Or is it really something that I'm saying is just out of line? Typically, when I have an unpopular opinion, I'm saying it that way to make you think about what you're doing.
And also acknowledging, hey, what I'm about to say is probably going to ruffle some feathers, but let's move forward. Like, like I'm okay with whatever you have to throw my way after what I say, but it's not going to stop me from saying it. Is basically right. What you're saying. Let's be honest.
That's right. And I have to say that I've not gotten any bad tweets or anything. So
yeah, no, it's good.
Maybe nothing those opinions were a little more popular than I thought.
Yeah. You're probably willing to say what other people aren't willing to say.
That is
probably
true.
Got a lot to do with it.
That is true. Before we go to break, I do want to say this when we're talking about leadership and this whole unpopular opinion conversation real quick. I have been trolled before. And I don't know if everybody's been trolled or whatnot whenever you post stuff, but this was early on. Not that my coaching career has been like forever, a couple of years now, but this was early on in my coaching career. And, you try to post content that adds value. Sometimes it's a meme, sometimes, but it's something that you want people to think about. At least that's what I do, right? Mm-hmm. And so I even forget what the post was, to be honest, but it was the first time I'd been trolled. And this guy, I did look at his profile and all this, and I'm like, well, okay, he's entitled to his opinion. Cool.
Right.
Not going to stop me from posting what I want to post. And it was something to the effect of oh, well, I don't even remember what I posted, but he was saying, you're not going to be saying that once you run out of food, or once you do this and once you do that. And I was just like, oh, wow. But yeah, I might. I mean, I didn't respond to the guy.
Yeah, I wish I knew what you posted.
Well, I'm gonna have to.
But that's how relevant it was. You only remembered what the other person, because that goes to you only remember how someone made you feel. Correct? Mm-hmm. I mean, right there. So you don't even remember what you posted.
Don't even remember what I posted. I remember him troll, and I remember actually cracking up because I'm like, okay, am I supposed to have hurt feelings by this? Am I supposed to, what am I supposed to feel? And after I kind of searched his profile and looked at what he had to say, I will tell you this. I even thought, okay, does he have a point with what he's saying? Right? He's trolling me. Does he have a point? And I was like, no, doesn't really have a point. Sounds like he's just bitter and trolling to be trolling, right? Wants to say the opposite. Wanted me to react, right?
Of course, because that's usually what that's all about, getting you to respond.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I didn't, and I moved on. You know what? I'll search that post and I'll try to send it to you to see what it was. And you can see the conversation.
I have to see, yeah.
But that's just, it goes back to kind of what we're saying, right? He trolled me. He was feeling some kind of way, and his emotions made him type what he typed, right?
Right.
And so then off of that, okay, I saw it. I didn't know if I was supposed to feel a certain way. and I did not let my emotions get the best of me, right?
Good.
I did not interpret that in a way that, oh, I need to clap back at this guy.
Correct.
Or I need to go ahead and we need to have this war or whatever based on what I posted. Hell, if you don't like what I post, you ain't got to be on my page.
Right? You could just go somewhere else. I mean, it's not going to hurt my feelings.
Exactly.
Or cause me any emotional harm.
Well, maybe I'm scarred by it now because I'm not scarred by it at all. It made me think of that. And that could have been a turning point, right? Could have been, I could have used that and used this emotion oh my gosh, I had some content and someone trolled me. I can't do this anymore. Could have easily gone down that road,
Right. And what does that do?
Exactly.
Nothing. Nada. Yeah.
Oh man, that's hilarious. I'm gonna have to find that now. Oh, all right, folks. We're gonna take a quick break. Hopefully you don't remember me getting trolled, but that's okay. We're gonna take a break. When we come back, we'll talk further about feelings and emotions. Stay right there.
priority at Blue Monarch Communications is building your confidence as an effective presenter. Whether you're preparing for a formal presentation, a keynote address, an interview, or presenting an idea or concept to your team or your clients, we are here to ensure that you are poised to effectively communicate your content while engaging and connecting with your audience. Let our team help you shine.
Hey folks, this is Lee Grigsby here, health and life coach and founder of Live All Good Coaching. I'll be on the air with Podcast Business News Network, talking about the various things around health and wellness and mental health. Also talking about how mindset is critical to achieving the goals that you set for yourself. You can reach me at liveallgood44@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, liveallgood.com, and fill out the contact form and reach me there. Once again, that's liveallgood.com. Go to the About section, fill out the contact form, or you can reach me at liveallgood44@gmail.com.
All right, folks, welcome back from the break. Hopefully no one is sending me any Twitter messages or trolling me because I do not need the emotional damage right now. No, I'm kidding.
You're safe. You're safe.
This is our continuing conversation, Cruising with the Coaches. Julie is here. I'm Lee. And, you know, this part of the conversation, we want to dive into what it looks like to kind of, you know, be more emotionally intelligent, right?
Mm-hmm.
How to develop that awareness, how to, what do we say? We were talking about this in the break a little bit, how to bring yourself out of that feeling.
I was gonna say, like, how do you, it's basically transferring the energy. So like you'd have like literally, so we're talking about being in a room. So if you're in a room and you're about to enter the room and your stomach is starting to flip because of this, that, or whatever, and then you realize, let's just say, because usually it's an X or something like that, you know, and like, so you're walking into the room and stomach's flipping, and then you see someone, and then all of a sudden you start to get emotionally involved because now you're remembering all those feelings that came up. Okay, let's physically remove ourselves from the room, okay? And just take a deep breath. And realize, like, whatever energy you're about to spend is not even worth it, you know? And so whether it's causing a scene or giving someone else the satisfaction of showing that you are having some kind of emotional whatever, just taking into account and just breathe it out, and then re-enter the room. Because it's like you can always control how your emotions are taking you over. You can always control that. And I think there's some people who don't realize that.
Well, you're right. Like, I love to, like you said, remove yourself physically, because the feeling you're getting is physical, right?
Correct.
And you're so right. There are people who think they cannot control their emotions because they confuse it with the feeling. You can't control the feeling. That's the physical
that's gonna happen.
Response. Yeah.
Yes.
It is the emotions, dare I say, are a choice, right?
Right.
And people forget you get to choose that, you know?
Right.
I'll give you another scenario, right? Where we're talking about, and both, I'm sure you have experienced, you and I, can't talk today.
It's all good.
Have experienced this on more than one occasion, right? When you're the only person of color in the room.
Oh, in a space.
Or
Absolutely.
in that space, right? So that feeling of discomfort or uncomfortableness, that, dare I say, is almost generational, right?
Yes, it is. It is.
There's a lot that comes along with that. But at the same time, what you get to choose, and I'm sure that you and I have done this, right? What we have chosen is, you know what? I'm confident with who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm confident with whatever the content or material is that we're covering in this conference or this meeting, whatever it is. And I am not representing everybody who looks like me.
Right. I am not representing my people. Are we clear?
Exactly. So that's what we have to do when you start peeling away those layers of emotion when you're the only person of color in any given scenario, right?
Yes. Yes.
Like, own it, and it's okay, because you are Julie or you are Lee. You're not the representative for all Black men in DC or in Ohio, from Ohio, whatever it is, right?
Right.
That's too big of a burden to carry. And that's going to cause a feeling of, oh, I can't do this. And your body's going to shut down.
And I've always honestly wondered, like, how do you how do you send over confidence to someone like that? Like I've often, I guess I don't want to, I'm just going to say it. I've often been
gotta bring it.
Yeah, right. I've often been accused, and I hate that it seems like an accusation, but it does feel like an accusation, where it's you feel very comfortable in that setting. You can handle yourself in that setting. Well, that doesn't sound like a compliment now, does it?
No.
Right.
No, it does not.
And so I don't know how to take it when it is said. And it's kind of like I almost feel apologetic, because I'm like, I'm sorry you aren't that comfortable in your own skin. Like, I don't know any other way to say that, but like, I don't want to say it that way, because the whole point is wanting that person to be just as confident as I
you
feel.
are.
And so it's just kind of like, I don't know. I've never been afraid to say what I have to say, but sometimes I have nothing to say and I am simply observing. Okay. So you can get two different versions of me. Okay. So I can be in the same room, same type of setting, where I am simply observing, because maybe I've heard negative things that made me feel some type of way. And I'm not going to show you the emotion that comes with all that. So I'm just going to sit here and listen in the room and hear what you have to say. Now, that's not an advertisement to say sometimes when I'm quiet in the room, you should be afraid. No, I'm just saying sometimes I am. I learn where there's places where I need to just observe and listen, and just listen and be quiet. But there are other places where I'm like more comfortable in my skin, which is like, I don't know. I guess I feel like everybody should be comfortable, but I don't know. I'm pretty surprised with the amount of people who are not comfortable. I really am.
I would agree with you on that. And I would also agree with you that even with the observation part, right? If you're in that observation space, that's okay. You might find that what the initial feeling of discomfort was, right? The observing might actually help change that. There might be something different. So again, it's good not to act on the emotion, right?
Correct.
Because that's the initial feeling of walking in there. Okay, I feel some kind of way because I saw who was invited to this meeting. I'm the only person of color, so you guys are going to look to me to represent all
I'm that token child. Okay,
feel.
Thanks. You know it. You know when you walk in the room.
Been there, done that. Got the t-shirt, right?
Right.
But then once you're observing and you realize, okay, maybe they had the lack of foresight to see, oh, there's some other people that could have been here.
Right. Brought other people to the table.
And let me raise the awareness in the room that, hey, let me introduce you to, or let's bring in this person and that person, right?
Correct.
But that's part of helping to interpret your feelings, right? You take that step back. You take a moment. Like you said before, maybe you have to leave the room and gather yourself, right? Or maybe you're in the room and you observe. Like, don't rush to address or use your emotions to address the feelings. Right?
Correct.
Don't rush to that. Maybe
Yep.
it takes time to interpret, oh, okay, this feeling was uncomfortable because, yeah, that's not a comfortable feeling to be the only one in the room. But now that I'm here, let's go ahead. Now I feel confident with, guess what? Let me tell you a point of view. Let me give you a perspective that you don't have.
Because while that made you feel uncomfortable, understand being uncomfortable can just be a challenge. And just because you've been challenged doesn't mean you don't have value to what you have to say. Absolutely. So, I mean, I don't know. I think we have to like learn to, I don't know.
To live with the discomfort. Or the saying is, you gotta be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know what? I got a great example of this. There was a couple weeks ago, my daughter's on the track team, and I had her out on the track. It's amazing how keenly this points this out. This illustrates this. So she's going to run the 400, right?
Okay.
So she wanted to practice. I think she's going to do the 4x400 relay also. Not entirely sure, but wanted to practice, baton handoffs, all that stuff. Okay, great. So we're going through some drills and doing some practicing. And at the very end, I wanted her to go ahead and run a 400, right? Because she's got to learn to, adjust her speed around the track at different points, all that kind of stuff.
Of course.
So she started off, I counted down 3, 2, 1, go. She's on her way. She's around the second turn and she stops. And I was like, okay, and now mind you, I'm not the kind of parent or dad that is going to push her through an injury. Like, we don't do that. We don't do that. And I've always told her, if something, now we go through warm-ups and stretching and all that, but if something doesn't feel right, if it doesn't feel right, absolutely stop. And let's, if it's a stretch or if it's muscle, whatever. So I get to her and I'm like, okay, what happened? And she was like, well, I was getting tired and I was trying to, slow down and do this. And I'm like, well, hold on. You're going through this whole explanation, but let's stop the explanations. What are you feeling? And she was like, well, no, I'm okay. I'm like, okay, so you don't have an injury. And she was like, no, I'm not injured. And I'm like, okay, so you stopped because you were tired. And she was like, yeah. So you see, I like cut through the BS real quick, right? Because her brain was coming up with all these things to tell me about why she stopped, right?
Yes.
Not that, my knees kind of feeling a certain kind of way, because we've practiced before. And she's like, yeah, you know what, my knee. I'm like, okay, cool, let's walk. Like that's something we got to pay attention to, right?
Right.
So there's no injuries. And she stopped. I'm like, okay, well, what was, we addressed what's going on. I'm like, yeah, I know you're tired. I get it. We've been out here for like an hour and we've been doing this, doing that. Yeah, that's the point.
Right.
But guess what? All you did was stop. Like that's what starts to separate the average to the good to the great, right? Being tired, everybody's going to be tired. Who wants it more? Who's going to push through? That's your brain telling you, I'm ready to stop, right?
Right.
So I had her start again, and as she was going to the starting line, I'm like, look, at that second turn, that's when because the gun goes off, the adrenaline kicks in, everybody's going through. Come that second turn, when you're about to go down the back stretch, everybody's going to get tired. So if you can give just a little bit more, not turning it on all the way, but that's where you can start to separate yourself, right? So we get through all of that. She does the 400 and we go home. But I use that because that is the difference between feelings and emotions, right?
Emotions. Oh, of course.
she literally, there was nothing wrong. There was no feeling that needed to stop her, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was in her own head about, I'm tired, and we
I'm
like,
done.
exactly.
Like, I'm out.
and learning to push through that mental fatigue is what helps get you build that track character, but then that builds character for other things, you know. Oh, but
See, I love that you have conversations like that with your daughter, because it's like I'm like the same with my kids, and it's just kind of like I kind of beat that generation of because I said so, or I'm not giving you a reason. You just listen. You just do it, you know. And it's so funny because my kids, my middle child, mostly my mini me, I would call her. She cracks me up the most because she's always calling me out when, like, if we go somewhere to get fast food or something, and you know the person's like, "Have a good night," and I'm like, "Oh no, not have a good night." What did she say? Is it have a good night? Oh yeah, they say have a good night, and I say thank you, and I keep driving, and then she's like, "Mom, you're supposed to tell them to have a good night too," and I'm like, "Oh, like I'm like I thought she was telling me, so I said thank you, you know." So those are the little things that you never really pay attention to how much they're listening, you know?
Exactly.
And so just recently I had a doctor's appointment that we were in the car together. They called and they were rescheduling. Now, mind you, this was an appointment that I was going to within 3 hours, and they were rescheduling.
Right.
And so, not to mention a doctor's appointment that they had decided with my reminder to let me know if I no-showed, I was going to be paying $50. Not something that I signed at the office, but like in my reminder of my appointment and what have you.
And yet they're going to reschedule. Okay.
But they're rescheduling me 3 hours prior to my appointment. But I'm like, okay.
Right.
So I'm on the phone and she's in the car with me, and I'm talking to the lady as she's rescheduling me. And I'm like, she's trying to reschedule me for a Saturday, and Saturdays are actually very difficult for me. And so I'm just like, okay, so I just want to understand this. I was like, so you are telling me that I'm like 3 hours prior to the appointment. Now you are moving me. So where is my $50 compensation?
I love it.
Crickets. And so then the lady, you know, she's like, I'm sorry, what? I was like, so when I received my confirmation last week and the one to which I confirmed with, and I noticed that there is now a $50 fee that I've never signed any paperwork saying that was okay. And, you know, again, I got up, you know, I just said my piece, but I wasn't angry. I was just simply stating logic, you know? And so we get off the phone and I looked at my daughter and I'm like, I'm sorry, was that rude? Was I being rude? Was that like a McDonald's situation for you? And she just looked at me, she looks at me, she goes, no, Mom. She's like, I love how you stand up for yourself. And I was just like, oh, okay. But heaven forbid.
Love it.
Someone says, have a good night. And I say, thank you. You're ready to rip my head off. But it was just cute because I'm like, it's amazing how I will say so many children are I feel like they're more in tune with their emotions than you think that they are, you know? And it's just kind of like, wow, like while they understand the feeling, they also understand that feeling is not permanent. And like that there's going to be something else coming along. You know, like,
you're so right.
Yeah. And I think they're so resilient, you know, and they don't get wrapped up in all of this, which I think is a beautiful thing.
And I think we've seen that over the last couple of years now, right?
Yeah.
That yes, they are resilient, they're adaptable, and you're right. A lot of them are more in tune, and this is even just a general statement, right? A lot of them are more in tune with their emotions than you think they are. It's us as adults that don't give them that chance.
Right.
Because well, again, as you get older, you start to, again, you try to interpret your emotions and have your emotions drive your feelings. So you try to then put that on them, but they're actually pretty in tune, you know?
They are.
If you treat them as a whole person, it comes out if you're willing to listen, you see?
Right.
If you're willing to listen. And that's okay. And we both admit we're not always willing to listen.
Right. I own it.
We understand that, but we try as much as we can. And I think that's our kids are gonna they recognize that,
They do.
And I think that's an important part. So
yeah. So I will have to say, I feel like at this point in time, I'm still growing up. I don't care how you slice or dice that. I'm still growing up. So never at one point in my life have I been this age with my children and dealing with their emotions. That like I have to deal with what they have going on in that moment. I have nothing to balance that against. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong?
Right.
Especially because my kids are very close in age, and we don't really. I do have to say that I am very clear on I treat you guys differently based on your personalities.
Which you should. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, and I think that it's not a cookie cutter, right?
Exactly.
I mean, yes, the foundational stuff. Okay. They got a roof over their head. They got food to eat. They got clothes on their back, right?
Right.
Okay. Yes, they go to school. But like you said, they all have different personalities. They may experience the same feeling. But each one of them will interpret it differently because they're different.
Right. So their emotions are going to be very different.
And you have to be able to navigate and address that. Yeah. You can't treat them the same because they're not the same. That's
exactly.
Awesome. Yep. And I'm glad. Thank you for pointing that out. For parents who are listening, right? If you have multiple children, close in age, not close in age, whatever, and it goes to how you treat people same way.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And I know we've mentioned this in episodes past and all that, but you can address or experience the same feeling, but your emotion is going to have you interpret it differently.
Exactly.
Period, man.
Yep.
Is there anything that you'd like to leave our listeners with about feelings and emotions? Or should we leave them with homework?
Yeah. What kind of homework?
I like that. I think the homework should be until we have another conversation, right? I'm sure we will around emotions and feelings. But until we do, I want our listeners to start becoming aware, right? So really start to understand the physical response that your body has to any given situation, right? Yep. Once you are able to identify that physical response, immediately go to, okay, wait, what am I thinking? What is my brain telling me, right? What's the story that I'm using to interpret this feeling? That's how you can really begin to get emotionally intelligent, right? You're tapping in to your emotions, and that's how you get to control them. That's how they don't control you. So I really encourage our listeners to do that for homework, so to really lean in, tap into that.
And I would say Google superhero pose.
Oh, superhero pose, you said.
Superhero pose. If you are walking into a room where you feel like you are lacking confidence in some way, shape, or form, preferably in a private area, you will go and walk and find some space and perform the superhero pose, and you will find a little bit more confidence where you thought you didn't have it.
That is 2 forms of homework, folks. Love it. I love it. All right. Well, again, we have loved being here with you on a Wednesday. This is Cruzin with the Coaches, a conversation with Julie and Lee. You can find us on Spotify, Google, Apple, Amazon, and a few other podcast platforms. Until next Wednesday, it is Lee and Julie signing off.